Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Super Duper Homebrew Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Homebrewer Showcase interview with Joe Whiting. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 256. Hello and welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or now you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. I am your host, Joshua Stewing. Today, I'm just delighted. We have such a special guest. Joe Whiting is a longtime avid homebrewer. He's an accomplished recording artist, and he's a friend of the show. Joe, my friend, how are you doing today?
Josh, I'm just so happy to be here because, like you said, I've watched the show every week, and I just got the thing in the mail. Actually, last week I ordered from James a 3-faucet keg for a fridge conversion kit, so I'm psyched about getting to work on that.
Nice. Now, real quick, is this your first fridge conversion, or are you expanding on Keezer? What?
I've got a single keg one that I did a couple of years ago, and in fact, years ago, I had converted an old Coca-Cola machine without harming the machine, but it was very cool. And then, I sold the machines, but I've got a single keg, and then I bought a refrigerator a couple of years ago specifically for homebrew stuff. So yeah, but I don't want to drill in anything crazy.
Yeah. Well, I only asked because you have, I think, 190 kegs behind you. I'm bad at math.
I do. I went kind of, years ago, a guy in the band managed a pizza shop. And when I told him I was going to get into keg, he goes, "Don't buy any kegs." He goes, "I can get you all you want." So this is when they still belong to Coca-Cola, but I still got most of them.
That's fantastic. You're kidding. Those are that old. Like, because a lot of people, especially, I'm 36, which, for most people that's considered young. With my family history, it's middle age, but it's considered young for most people. I don't remember. I was alive, but I don't remember the pre-mix, post-mix, like when those were actual soda kegs. But these were, like you said, from a pizza shop, actual in use and then given straight to you.
Yes, indeed. So I cleaned them up. But, back in the day, when these things went back to the factory, they were put on by a machine, and so I never could get them off. Trying with a crescent wrench, breaking your knuckles. So it wasn't until a few years ago when they made that deep socket. Even then, I couldn't get them off. I had to buy a bar, and one of the guys in the band straddled the damn thing like he was riding a Bronco and finally loosened them. But I had always just cleaned them by hand, reaching my arm in and clipping the service tube, half an inch or so. So there was now being able to clean them properly is great.
That's awesome. I want to first, like I said, thank you for coming on the show. We've talked before off air. You're a terribly fascinating guy, and lately, we've been so busy at the office. I was telling Todd and James, like, don't worry about content every week. I'm going to do a lot of Homebrewer Showcase episodes as we end the year, and I'm so happy that you made the time to join me. If it were up to me, we would just get our instruments out and do a jam session for 45 minutes. JoeWhiting.com or JoeWhitingMusic.com, pardon me, is where they can check out your music. And we'll plug that later as well and talk about your music career. But let's start off with how I do with most of these interviews with Homebrewer Showcase. Let's talk about your background as a home brewer. How'd you get into it? Because I remember when we first talked through email, you've been brewing off and on a very long time. And you were around when I won't throw you under the bus like I did Todd's dad, where I don't know if you were brewing pre-legalization. Let's just wink, wink, nod, nod if you weren't, but you definitely were in the first wave of legal homebrewers. So let's talk about your history and background as a homebrewer and what got you into craft beer and homebrewing in the first place.
Well, it's hard for people today to remember, but in 1978, when it was finally declared legal by Jimmy Carter, there were no craft breweries, there were no microbreweries, no brew, pubs, anything. And your extent of imports, at least in here, and people think of New York, they think of the city, but central New York is very much a lot of farmland, small places. I live in a place called Skinny Atlas, which is a small town. So if you're looking for an import, you were looking at Lowenbrau, which wasn't that much of an import, quite frankly, maybe St. Pauli Girl, but even Heineken wasn't in yet. So, when it became legal, I've always liked beer, I always liked the taste of it, whether it's legal or not. And there's no internet, no computer, but I read a little ad and something saying, make your own beer, write for this little pamphlet, which I did. And I still have one of the original plastic kegs, the fermentation kegs. So anyway, of course, my first batch, like most people, a can of Muntenfeisen, hopped, light, 4 cups of corn sugar in about 1.5 gallons, and then top it off with cold water. And my aha moment was the next day when that airlock started bubbling. I'm thinking, yeah, we're in. And then, 2.5, 3 weeks later, when I tasted it, it tasted good. It tasted different. It tasted smooth, had a good head on it, but it wasn't super carbonated like something. So, man, I was hooked from the beginning, totally hooked. And immediately 1 fermentation led to 2, led to 3 and 4, which I still have the 4 of them, amongst my other things. Quickly got into all malt, and then got into with actual hops. And some of the hops that you used to get, oh my God, little blocks of stinky things. It was like, yeah, but you know what? And that's the thing that I think, Josh, that is missing today. And granted, there are so many brewers out there that are so scientific with so much math and chemistry in it. I've heard you mention math, chemistry. Yeah. It's like, that doesn't work with me. But there were so many malt extracts that were available. So, dozens of them. And now really not many. The reason I bring that up is because I think to get new people into this hobby, and as you've said, it's the best time to be a home brewer. Everything is there, but you want to make it the entrance to be easy and fun. And let's face it, no matter how complex you get into it, it's still fun. It's a great hobby.
Oh, yeah. And I always, there are people still who are kind of like, when you talk about extract brewing, like, oh, no, I'm talking about brewing. I'm like, no, but for real, like extract brewing is enjoyable. I did a batch, I did a 5-gallon batch of Kolsch for a buddy's party, and I didn't have the time to do an all grain day. So what I did was an extract batch of James's recipe, and it was a hit. And they floated that keg at that party. I think there was only 3 people, so I'm not good at math. But no, I'm kidding. There was like 30 people. But either way, they floated it and went through it, and he messaged me the next day, oh my gosh, man, that beer was fantastic. And I was like, do I tell him? Do I not tell him? I didn't.
Now, the purists will probably be appalled, but I've got a batch ready to keg that includes the unholy 3. It's got both flaked rice, flaked corn, and corn sugar in it. Not corn sugar, I actually use organic sugar. Hey, it's a cream ale thing. That was the recipe. I thought, I'm going to give this a try.
That sounds delicious. Cream ale, right, is always good. I always harp on how much I love Kolsch. Cream ale is one of those ones I can enjoy any day of the year as well. I love a good
I've never made one, but hearing you guys talk about Kolsch and alt, I thought, I got to try one of these. And it must have been beginner's luck, Josh, because the first Kolsch that I made last year came out really good. I was hooked immediately. Then I made an alt, and I'm thinking, I like it even better.
Oh yeah.
I think if I had one to go with, it would be alt.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you. Let me be careful with how I say this, because I don't want to like the Kolsch guys is not a shtick. I have a case of Fru at all times. I could take the camera real quick and walk you over there. But one of the main reasons why I was so devoted to it is because commercially speaking, alt beers aren't readily available, and I wasn't brewing them that much. And for my money, James makes the best alt I've ever had, and I can't pay him to make them. He wants to make other beers, so I was like, okay, you know what? I'll stick with Kolsch, and it came to me. But I'm with you. If I had a readily available stream of alt, that would be my number one choice for what I'm drinking every day. But because I have to brew it, and that whole lazy shtick that I do, but it's not really a shtick, it's a lifestyle. But I'm with you. I wish there was a good commercial example of an alt beer that I could get in Central Texas or in the United States, period. Because the brewery near me in Fredericksburg, they are a German-based brewery, but their alt beer's not an alt. And I don't think the guy's from Dusseldorf, so I don't blame him. He probably their Kolsch is a little sweet for my taste too. The alt, I think they stopped calling it an alt and they just called it an amber, which is more appropriate because it's not.
Yeah, and actually, after hearing the interview with Horst, it's like unless you follow his recipe, everything is an alt style.
Yeah,
almost.
exactly.
You guys were like transfixed by this guy. Me too. I'm like hanging on every word he's saying.
Dude, I need to get him. I'm trying to get him back as free. I mean, honestly, I would love to just produce the show and he take my spot. I've said that. And he laughs like, oh, you're joking. Like, no, Horace, take my spot. Like, I'd love to hear him, James, and Todd speak for hours. But I'm trying to I want to fly him down. He's in the Boston area. I want to fly him down to Todd's ranch and have a alt brew day with him, record it and have him show me in person, like what makes it. Cause I know he has some tricks up his sleeves or at least some input, some ideas to making the perfect alt. And that's what I'd love to do. And as I haven't talked a whole lot about this, but I'm trying to prepare a space for, we're going to do a video with Grainfather on their new G40, and I'm trying to prepare a space for it here and get a conical here. That way I'm not having to cram all my stuff at my folks' house, but also too, so I don't have to, plan a film day over there. I can get all my equipment down from the shelf and film here. But what I'm getting at is I would love to be brewing regularly here at home base, my own home, in which case maybe I will have more alts on tap. But actually what's going to happen is because Kolsch is so easy, I'm just going to end up having 50 gallons of Kolsch every other week, and just giving it out
the thing, like I said, my first Kolsch I was just so surprised how good it was. The second one, not so much. And I think some of that could have been, I had a brew day where it was like, I'm going to brew all day. So I brewed 3 batches. And it's like, so the brew day was like 10 hours plus. And the Kolsch was the last one I brewed. And I'm thinking I think I probably sparged it too quickly. Because there's just a little astringency, not spoiled, but just a little, not the smoothness.
Well, and that's the thing that I have found with Kolsch, where I know, James will say the alt is the hardest beer he's brewed because of how he will say that because of how delicate he thinks it is for him to find it acceptable. James is his biggest critic, for better or for worse. For better for us, because it means he only will serve you the beer he thinks is good, and which means it's phenomenal. The beer he thinks he brews that is not good is still really good beer, so I benefit from that too when he's like, try this, but I don't like it that much, and I know that means it's still going to be good. But I think the Kolsch, from my experience, granted I've only done one alt, and it was an extract batch that my pop and I did a while ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and the Kolsch though there's nothing to it. So that makes it more vulnerable.
You can't hide anything.
You can't hide anything. And that makes it scary for me because it could be a flawless brew day, but I get lazy with my temperature conditions during fermentation. And boom, the esters are there. Or just notes of it where like, oh, son of a gun, why was I lazy? Why didn't I make sure, or I pitched an old pack of yeast, or I did, there's so many things that because you can't hide it. Like I could, my pop and maybe, I forget which IPA it was, if I brewed it with my pop or not, but there was an IPA we did where I for sure thought it was going to be messed up, but there was just so much hop flavor. Like, you couldn't tell the flaws that were in the base beer. Thank God, because we just threw so many hops at it. With the Kolsch, a good Kolsch to me is like drinking a cloud. So it's dry, it goes down smooth, and there's nothing to it. It's just,
not overly hopped.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. But so back to you, because the story's it's not the Kolsch Happy Hour. It's the Homebrewer Showcase with Joe Whiting. What equipment, as you started your brewing process over the years and switching from how you were, what kind you were brewing, all malt, pre-hopped malt, and all that extract to today, what's some of the gear that you've used over the years? And then what gear are you using on present day 2021 brew days?
Well, I think I started, in fact, right here, I've got the second issue of Zymergy. Listen to that. It's the summer of 1979.
Whoa!
79. So I got in, once I was just like that rabbit hole. I was totally hooked. Every spare minute was down here making beer. With basically the same procedure of you're boiling about a gallon and a half. And then, when good hop pellets became available, I started into the hop pellets and experimenting with different malts, because like I said, I didn't start in grain until about 4 years ago, other than specialty grains as I, got into. So it was pretty much just experimenting with different hop. And then of course got out of the hop flavored extracts and went into and did it with regular hops, and got into kegging pretty quickly. I've got over here a case of Lone Star original long necks in the original case, and a case of Black Label in the same. I've got some fantastic bottles. How about this? You ever seen a bottle like this? It's a quart capable brown bottle.
It looks like the 40s I would buy when I was 22. And
Exactly. Nobody makes them anymore. A client of my wife's was cleaning out her garage. She used to homebrew years ago. She goes, I got about 20 of these. You want them? Just took the labels off, cleaned them, and they're some ways they're handier than a growler because you can cap them, But so I from probably 79 is when I started brewing. I got into it heavy until about 93, 94. And then I don't know, I think because as more good beers became available, it became less important to me. And, time, whatever, you're raising a family and whatever. And people would always ask, you still making beer, John? I go, I know, but I'm going, I still got my stuff. And then, about 5 years ago, I thought, I'm going to do it. So God, I had to clean everything. It was just a mess. But I'm telling you, Josh, after being out of it for 20 years, it was like Rip Van Winkle waking up to a different world. It had grown in leaps and bounds. I was astounded that the magazine was still available. And it was like, holy cow, I hope I don't have to, be a mathematician, a chemist, and a scientist, which you don't. You can be, but you don't have to be. And like I said, you want to get new people into this and let them know how fun it is and how easy it can be. It doesn't have to be, but it can be easy.
Yeah, even if the AHA ever wanted to do a Zymergy issue of, hey, homebrewing is idiot proof, I'd be on that cover. I could do it. Like you stupid smile.
Exactly.
Because I feel that way all the time. If I can brew and produce decent beer, and my pop's an engineer, so some might say he's the brains behind our operation. But I still contend if we can brew, anyone can brew. And like you said before, quoting me about it is the best time ever to be a home brewer because of accessibility. You can take it as deep as you want, or you can be as straightforward, simple as you want, and it's all producing real good solid beer. So right now I see the brew bucket behind you, your all grain brew days. Are you utilizing all in one, or how are you doing your all grain?
I'm utilizing, and that's what got me into the grain thing, because the grain thing, before the all in ones, you would see either these wickedly expensive setups or these jerry rig setups that was like kind of beyond my but when the all in one, I thought, what, for $300 I'm going to give this a shot. And of course, once you do it, it's the same thing as the first batch that I made. When you make a batch of all grain, it's like, wow, eureka, so yeah, I'm an all in one, and usually all grain, but I'm in fact on tap right now is grain and 3 pounds of dry malt extract.
Nice.
It's pretty good, pretty clear, pretty good.
So you mix your brew day, like you'll still dabble in the partial mash or just extract batches and do all grain brew days?
Yeah, I haven't, I did do on that big brew day, I did do an all extract, half liquid, half dry, and specialty grains. And that came out good. It came out good. And for $300, if someone wants to get into this, even if they just do extract, you got a full boil, which you're going to get better results,
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. Yeah. Which all-in-one? I didn't hear you if you mentioned.
I got the mash and boil without the recirculating pump. And I'm thinking of, upgrading to the one with the pump. Although I manually with a cork thing recirculate it, but it would be kind of nice, I think, to automatically.
I have in my garage right now the original mash and boil that we did a video about it. James did a video, or not on it alone. He did a comparison video.
I've watched it.
Yeah. So in that video, I have that one, but I didn't take the recirculation stuff home with me. But it's in my garage because I was thinking, if I want to start doing 5-gallon batches, and then like I said, the Grainfather thing came up where they're going to let us borrow a G40, and I'm assuming I'm going to like it, so I'll probably end up buying a G40 for my spot as well. Because I like 10-gallon batches is my sweet spot. 15-gallon batches is what I want to do. I want to put a Brautag Herm setup at my pop's house.
I've looked at it. Trust me, it's a pretty. And when you think, oh my God, that's expensive, compare it to similar things, and it's a bargain.
Right. Well, that's how I feel. And I'm going to edit all this out, and I'm not really, because I don't want my dad to know. Dad, we're putting a Brautag at the house, man. I would have do it in my garage. I don't have the space, but I do have a space for a G40. But the 15-gallon batches is so I can get beer trades going with Todd and James, and we have it rotating. And then the 10-gallon batches would be, 5 at my house, 5 at my dad's house.
And see, I'm like the lonely brewer down here. My wife really doesn't drink. She will sample, want to go. I go, how do you like this? She go, I like this. If we're out and I'll order a beer, she'll take a station. She goes, I like yours better. So, for me, 5 gallons is plenty. I have found since I'd say 2019, 2018, pre-COVID, and especially during COVID, as more and more people get in this hobby, the all-in-ones have been the boom of the average home brewer. I think because of how easy they are to use and how form fitting, or I don't know, factory fitting or form, they are small. The real estate they take up is minimal. And I think people like that because it is difficult, like, saying I'm going to put a Brautag at my pop's house. There's a lot more than just saying we're going to put it there. We just have to make the space for it. I think Herm's Brewing is the best brewing that I've ever done. But with that being said, I understand not everyone has that kind of space. Not everyone has that kind of budget, where these all-in-ones, like without recirculation, like you said, the mash and boil, $300. $300. And it's even less now. The basic one is even less now. So, it's, and I don't know how to get new people. It's into the hobby. It seems like most people you're preaching to the choir, they're into it,
Right, I agree. So you said the Lonely Brewer. Are you not a part of any local homebrew clubs? Are there no?
I'm not a joiner. I'm not a competitor in terms of, I like to compete with myself. Is this batch as good as the last one? So it's like, I'm not a joiner kind of a guy.
I like that. Yeah, I hate people too, Joe. All right.
I see enough of them. I don't want to see them when I'm having fun.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're front and center on stage more times than not. So yeah, you don't want to be in the crowd. I don't want to be in it. No, I don't believe there's a homebrew club in San Marcos. The closest one I found was the South Austin. Oh, I forgot. South Austin area Zealots, Austin Zealots is one, but one's also called Saz, like the type of hops.
Yeah.
But I have not found. I know San Antonio has some clubs, but I brew with my pop, and we are our own club. I do like the community aspect of brewing.
Sure.
But I understand what you mean. Where
with your dad, and that is a great thing. And really, really hold on to those things. I mean, that, my dad has been gone for 5 years, and years ago I got him into making a couple of batches, but he's never been a cleanup guy. So it's like if my mom wasn't cleaning stuff up, he was done with it. Brewing with your dad, just hold on to that. That's a great thing. And even when you guys are brewing together, I mean, and I've told this to you off screen, and I've told it to James as well. To me, the fact that you have three guys that homebrew together, they can make a living selling stuff, and more importantly, like each other. I mean, that's a blessing, my friend.
One of those three is true. I'm not going to say which one. One of those three is true. The other two are in the realm of truth. Todd hates me, but no, I have a great time. I love this industry. It's the best. It's not only the best time to be a home brewer. It's the best time to be alive for me. I'm living my best life ever. So if you're brewing 5-gallon batches, but you have all those kegs, how many, what's your fermentation side of things look like? Are you just using that brew bucket? Do you have a bunch going so that you can brew?
Right now, I've got that Chapman stainless steel that I got a few months ago. I really like that unit because I don't reuse yeast. I did it years ago, and you can do it, but why bother? But so it's just like a bucket, and you can get, and I use Safe Ale 05. So it settles really good, so I can get every drop of beer when it's fermented out of there. But I've got my bucket. Last year, I brewed a batch in one of my original plastic fermentation. This is over 40 years old. So I'm lucky here, Josh, because I've got good water. Because we're next to, Skinny House Lake is one of the purest of the Finger Lakes, and the basement down here. It's pretty close to 65 year round. A little cooler in the winter, a little hotter in the summer, but it still stays pretty close. So I got into cold crashing some and watching Todd's video of forced carb, but I'm not sold on forced carb yet. The last 3 batches that I've done, I went back to priming them with sugar just to see. I don't know why the last couple of batches came out kind of cloudy. I can't but that's because I'm waiting for James's video on filtering.
That's right, James. That's right. No, it's just I keep forgetting to. Well, I keep going up whenever he's already kegged the beer, and I'm like, James, we got to do a filtering video because I don't want to waste a filter on nothing. I agree. We gotta get that. I've sent that. I think I linked to it in a few episodes when we talk about it, what he's using off of Amazon, but I definitely need to get the video.
Your guys' videos are really to the point. I mean, Todd's video on forced carb, it's only about 3 minutes long, but it covers, nobody wants to go down that 45-minute rabbit hole of,
believe me, I know, because some people, I've had to start hashtagging these podcast episodes with podcasts because I get more times than not people who find the episode not because they know who we are, but because the keyword ended up in the search, and then they'll leave a comment or they'll message me and be like, video sucked. It took 42 minutes to get to the topic. I'm like, well, no, it's a weekly podcast like that. When we do a niche video, it's like a 3-minute long thing, and that's it. That's the whole thing. And so when I remember, I timestamp in the description. So if you're watching this, we're 25 minutes in or whatever. Go to the description and look at the timestamp for. Well, no, this episode won't have it because I don't have questions for you. So if you're watching this and you're this far in and you're annoyed, sorry, don't leave a review. But anyway, so well. I see the Lone Star placard up there, and you're talking about the bottles.
I've got Homebrew Happy Hour over there. I've got it.
Well, my dad, that's his favorite beer of all time is Lone Star. So I want to segue that into, you were talking about when you started brewing, craft beer wasn't really a thing anyway. Has your taste of favorite beer changed over time? Like, what are some of your favorite styles to brew, and what are some of your favorite styles to drink? And has that changed over the 40 plus years that you've been in this whole game of brewing your own beer?
I think I've gone more to, if I'm going to brew one, I tend to lean toward the amber style, only because it's, particularly when you're an extract brewer, it's very hard to get a light beer, unless you're doing even when you're doing a full 5-gallon boil, it's possible.
Yeah.
So, if it's a commercial beer, we've got a good brewery in Utica, which is about an hour away, that survived this whole conglomerate of thing in the last 20 years. called West End Brewing. They make the Saranac product line and Utica Club, which is just a price beer, which is pretty good. And if they make I'm like James, I'm not crazy about IPAs, but they make a legacy IPA. It's about 6.2, and it's not crazy hoppy. That's pretty available around here. But I wind up, and I'm not the best brewer in the world. I know that, but I like homebrew. I like the taste of it.
And so do you have your like go-to, here's what's always going to be on tap? Or are you like Todd, where it's like, I'm in the mood for this. I'm
like Todd. My wife goes, you're diddling all the time. Quit changing things. Just stick with one thing. And there's certain truth to that. But, you have all these grains and you're like, well, maybe if I did this and change that. And it's like, I've been pretty lucky, really, in my first foray into home brewing. I never brewed a batch that was spoiled because, lesson number one, cleanliness is next to godliness. You got to clean stuff and sanitize stuff. Now, since I started all grain, I did wind up having it. My first foray into dry hopping, I let it sit way too long. So it had that kind of grassy or whatever.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. And I just couldn't drink it. In one batch, it was neither pale nor dark. It was kind of gray and it didn't taste that good. So that went down the drain. But I mean, in my first foray into brewing, I brewed literally hundreds of batches and never had a fouled batch. I had ones that I liked more often than not. But I think this alt, I'm interesting to see what my third, which is almost ready to put in the cooler, because the first one I loved a lot. The second one I liked a lot, but it wasn't as good. So we'll see the third. The next one's going to be horse recipe.
Wonderful. So you talking about the basement being almost a constant 65. Do you find yourself cellaring a lot of your batches?
I don't know why I got 16 kegs. I've got I see them on sale. Like I say, I got a couple from Todd, whatever. But I figure better to have too many than too little.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not going to send this clip out to your wife. We won't. We're not going to share with any significant other or family members that may question your spending habits. Why? I don't know why I don't, because I know when you're purchasing stuff.
My package from K Connection came last week, and it's so heavy. It's a mistake.
See, I have the benefit of being able to tell my wife it's work related. Now. Yeah. It's kind of a white lie because most of the time I'm spending our money, and but it's beer related, so that's work, honey. And she doesn't listen to this anyway, so I can say whatever I want. But when I take stuff to my parents' house, my mom is usually like, "Son, what is that?" And I'm like, no, it's we need it, Mom. So my dad has a storage closet with that looks like your shelving behind you that has. Well, he has a storage shed with a bunch of kegs in it, and then clean kegs in the inside of this closet. And then we have that Spite Solo prototype in there. We have our cooler brew system in there. We have our Anvil Foundry in there. We have the Spite kettle, the 10-gallon kettle. I mean, we have, all this stuff's at my pop's house. My mom's like, son, can you stop bringing stuff? Like, no, Mom, it's for work. Dad's helping me with work now that he's retired. He's helping me. Right. And now that I'm, like I said, I want to get a Brautag set up there. I'm trying to figure out the logistics of just doing it and not having my mom find out.
Yeah. And it doesn't look like it takes up that much space.
No, it's not. In my garage, though, I don't have quite the width to do it or the accessibility. I'd have to make the Brautag work would require a little more electrical wiring and stuff. Yeah. And I'd love to have, water, which I do kind of have a tap it. Yeah, I'm going to figure it out. I either, we're going to put the Brautag for sure at my parents at some point, but maybe I'll have
it. That's the beauty of it. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You're always learning. You're always augmenting. When we remodeled our kitchen many years ago, we moved into this house in 1978. When we remodeled the kitchen, everything, I brought the old stove down here. I brought the old sink down here. There's cupboards down here. So it's like, hey, I got an old style kitchen down here.
That's all you need. That's what I mean. Like if when I say a lot to be done, I don't mean that as like, oh, it's going to be so burdensome. I mean, I'm lazy and I just don't want to do it. But my pop's house, he has stuff already set up. So it's like,
Yeah.
Dad,
Yeah.
let's set it up here. And, but anyway, so, you seem like you have found your sweet spot as a brewer in regards to your process. You like how you're doing it. Do you think for you, you'd ever get wild and go, you know what? I do want to start brewing in bigger batches, or I do want to start doing this kind of brewing. Or do you think, no, this is it. I found what is for me, and this is it for life.
I say that, and I'll tell you why. I mean, the reason I went to an upright refrigerator, the new one, to hold 4 kegs, and rather than a Keyser, and Todd's video on it is fantastic, is because, look, honestly, lifting 5 gallons up and over and down. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm 73. I'm in pretty good shape, but I'm thinking, let's think ahead in the future for 5 years. If you're still here, are you going to be able to lift that thing in there? So in 5 gallons, like I said, my daughter drinks beer. She likes my beer, but how much can one of the guys in the band likes beer, so I'm always giving him a growler or something. There's only so much I can drink. Lord knows I try, but you can only give away so much. And believe me, we had the cable guy in here, a nice guy, said, because he was talking about beer. I said, hey, here's my cell phone. Anytime you want beer, let me know and I'll have a growler for you. So, I'm always trying to get people into it.
I used to give my pop a hard time because we would go through kegs quicker than I thought we should be. And it was because he's such a nice guy. He would take growlers with him to poker and share. And now that I've kind of shamed him on the show, he stopped doing it. But now we have beer all the time. And I feel bad. Like 4 months later, we're still drawing from this one keg. I want to give him formal permission, Dad. You can start giving beer. Well, no, not the ones I really like, but the other beer, start giving that away. Yeah, 5 gallon batches are perfect for the average bear. And like you said, I think, I had a customer, a Keg Connection guy, email. He replied, we did a newsletter recently that was showcasing, like, hey, DIY teaser, here's a video, here's an article, and let us help you do it. And he wrote back and he goes, man, I'm in my mid 60s and I can lift them now, but I want to, in 15 years, assuming I'm still doing this, am I going to be lifting? Because what's a 5 gallon keg weigh? 48 pounds, 49 pounds?
Yeah.
That's not, it isn't, you're right. It's not, and depending on how high your collar is and all that, you're getting on even a ladder and doing a deadlift.
Yeah, right. A ladder, right. I know.
It's not enjoyable.
They had a feature in Zymery G and a couple of issues ago about brewing in your golden years. And I'm thinking, this guy's younger than me.
Well, again, man, some of us have family history to where I had my midlife crisis in my 20s, man. I was preparing to die in my 40s. No, I shouldn't joke like that. My mom doesn't like hearing that. But so you're, like you said, so you're on, if you had to then choose a path of upgrade, which you're fine on your hot side, would you say, like, what could you upgrade, or what could you see you upgrade on the fermentation side, on the serving side? Like, what would be your ideal upgrade to your current setup?
Well, I'm a sprinkle guy, and I've had really good luck, and I've made starters before, but and that's another one of the biggest changes. The yeast now, you can get the best yeast for every kind of beer. In the olden days, it's whatever came with under the lid, and usually it wasn't enough. And unless, with Moncton, at least you're getting a good product in the day. But man, now the yeast is so much better. But I would think I would. I say this is my life setup, but I thought, hey, all I'm going to have is 1 keg on tap, and then all of a sudden, man, I'd like to have a fridge and have 4, and maybe only keep 1 cooling all the time and have 3 taps. So. And then of course, when I was talking to James, I bought another 5 gallon CO2 tank. But
James will upsell you, man. James is, see, when I talk with customers, I talk them out of sales. I'm like, maybe, because I'm cheap and I'm not in sales. But James is but James though it's not that he's an upseller in regards to giving you things you don't need. It's James thinks of the solutions in the long term of like, here's what I do and do it now because blah, blah, blah. And it's sincere, right? Where I'm thinking like, how do I save a penny? How do I pinch a penny? Where James is like, hey, let's do this, bundle this, and boom, here's the deal for you and get you set up. Yeah, I'm with you. Or I think having multiple beers on tap or the ability to, is good because, especially someone like you who tinkers with each batch, you can have your staple on tap, you can have your flavor of the month on tap, and you can have that experimental, like, I've never done a Belgian quad on tap. And then that way, if one of them you're not in the mood for, it's always good to have variety, even though, again, my taps are Kolsch, and Kolsch. No, at my pop's house, we have the breakfast stout. We have some of the pale ale left. We have a Kolsch on tap, Todd's Kolsch, which is delicious. And then we have an empty tap, which is about to have a hard seltzer. But diversity is a good thing on tap, right?
Absolutely. I mean, my base malt is usually Reese organic 2-row. I've got a bunch of Pilsner as well, but I had made all organic ones, but it's harder to get organic hops. So, what are you going to do?
In your opinion, over the years that you've been brewing, is there one either trend of beer or equipment release or one facet or multiple, because we've got the time, that you can think of that really was just game changing? Because again, in 40 years ago, it was the Muntins thing and the yeast under it was more straightforward, less selection in regards to of recipes and whatnot. But is there one moment where you're like, oh my gosh, home brewing is like this is a game changer?
Oh, like I said, when you're out of it when you start in the very beginning and then you're out of it when it's growing in leaps and bounds, I was astonished at the magazine and like how many, algorithms and how many, it blew my mind. Yeah. And so when I got back into it, I started really simple. And honestly, it wasn't like riding a bike. The first couple of batches I made when I got back into it they weren't as good as any of the batches I had done previously. So, but the game changer, I think for me, like you said, was the all-in-one going to the grain, all grain. And like I said as well, for an extract brewer, you're going to get a better beer when you can do a full boil on it. But that doesn't mean you can't get a good beer on your stovetop and topping it off with cold water.
No, absolutely. Which is what I did with that Kolsch, actually, because I used a smaller kettle. Yeah, we didn't do a full volume boil. I ended up topping off 2 gallons. We did a 3-gallon boil and I topped off like 2.5 gallons. Yeah. And again, it was hilarious. I tried it and it was like, yeah, this is all right. Not bad. But the guy who took the keg was like, everybody loved it. It was great. And I was like, son of a gun. Cause the last Kolsch I did before that was, the last one I did before that was on Todd's system, which turned out really good too. But the last one my pop and I did was the Kolsch Weizen, which I didn't want to talk about anymore, but it was the one that got, maybe we were on the higher end of fermentation, or it had some banana and it tasted like a Hefeweizen, and that was one I put so much thought and effort into during the day, and all this. Where the extract one was just like, ask my pop, he can comment on this. He was like, oh, how do you want to do this? I was like, Dad, I don't care. And then when it came time to, we're boiling a little bit longer, Dad, I don't care. And, I just didn't care. And transferring, open air transfer, I don't care. And it ended up being one of the better beers I've ever brewed. Son of a gun. And I'm saying like it's bad. Maybe I should stop caring so much, which is already, people listening, y'all can call me out. I don't care that much already. So caring less seems like I'm not caring at all. But maybe I should stop worrying about things and just beer. When it's potable, it's going to be a good day. That should be my perspective.
Exactly. And the thing is that the hobby has gone in such leaps and bounds. I mean, the all-in-one was a game changer for myself and so many people. Who knows in the next couple of years what's going to come out,
Exactly. That's what I love this hobby, because it is constantly evolving, and for the better or for worse. Like if you go to my favorite place on the internet, the subreddit for homebrewing, you'll see like hey, can somebody judge my blueberry wheat kettle sour with dill pickles, or what? I mean, I'm making that up, but it's probably a post somewhere on there.
Probably somebody's doing it somewhere.
And God bless them for trying, but I'm thinking like Horst, where I'm like, the horse is going to bring a gun and shoot you in the face for even talking about it. Just brew a simple beer, man. But it is, people drink what you want to drink, brew what you want to brew.
Exactly. But again, simplicity is hard. And no matter what, to do it right, it's hard. And so, I mean, I've got a batch, a cherry, Bing cherry batch that's in the cooler now. That I made when cherries were in season. It's all grain, but I put 5 pounds of crushed, depitted cherries in there. Man, a nice pink head on the thing. I'm not usually like fruit in beer. I don't like them too alcoholic, and I don't like them too hoppy. But then a session beer is fine with me, because you can drink more of them.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I like the taste of them.
I had a cherry wheat from Sam Adams that was just awful, and I was like, I'm never having this again. And then our buddy, friend of the show, he's been on a Homebrewer Showcase episode before, Brandon Allen, he sent us like 5 or 10, I don't remember. I just remember drinking them. A lot of bottles of a cherry wheat he brewed, and it changed my mind. I was like, oh, I do like cherry wheat. I just didn't like Sam Adams. It's not the style I didn't like. It was their take on the style. Yeah, no, fruit beers, I have no problem with them. I'm usually not seeking them because I'm a creature of habit. I really am. If Todd or James aren't brewing it, my dad and I probably aren't, because we're just sticking with, like, we know what kind of stout we like. We know what kind of pale we like. We know we love Kolsch, and we stick to kind of those because they're just easy drinkers. Good. Easy drinking. Good.
Yeah. I mean, so you're right. I think once I get settled, and like I'm still, here and there, but the alt kind of turned me around, because I always like not dark beers per se, but more the amber style like that. And that was just such a nice blend. Isn't it? Probably somewhere along there, and then experiment with the lighter stuff, and who knows? That's the fun part of it. Who knows? You wake up, I'm going to brew today. What do I got here? What do we do?
When did COVID, I have a lot of friends. I used to be in the music scene forever ago, more heavily involved in it. I still have friends in it, and COVID, it just totally wrecked their livelihoods when all the bars and everything got shut down. Did COVID obviously affected your musicianship? Did that lead you to brewing more during all those lockdown times? Did you reinvigorate a passion for home brewing because you couldn't go perform?
Well, what I wound up doing, my dad was a carpenter, and I worked with him for a while. So I used the summer and the fall to literally scrape, prime, paint the entire house and rebuild windows and everything you could think of. The performance part of it, the music part of it, I mean, I cut back my schedule for the last 3 or 4 years anyway, just picking and choosing more. So really what it made me do in terms of the music part of it was just even think about picking and choosing even more. I'm thinking, if I want to spend 4 or 5 hours of my life, to and from and gigging and stuff, is this really the gig that I want to do? And so I'm become even choosier on it, which is fine, because I've done it my whole life. I mean, if I started playing in a band when I was 16 years old, that was 1964. That's how long I've been doing it. So, but did it reinvigorate me for home brewing? Yeah. I mean, it was just like, okay.
Well, I found a lot of people during lockdown, new people specifically, a lot of people got into the hobby because they're like, I'm stuck at home. What should I do? I should make some hooch.
Yeah, exactly. If people think they're going to be saving money at it, that's debatable.
Hey, whoa. We don't talk about that secret. No, I'm very...
It's fun. I mean, it's fun. I got to think, when you and James and Todd get together and brew and then have a cigar out on the veranda there. Yes. Come on.
Oh, life is good. Oh, life is good. Yeah. I do want to segue into talking about your music because I absolutely love all the tracks that I've, all your stuff's available. I use YouTube Music mainly to get the ad-free YouTube experience. So I just stuck with YouTube Music, but your whole catalog's on there. Like you said, you've been playing since you were 16 years old in bands. And how long have you been a recording artist? Was 16, was that band your first recording experience?
We did a demo in 1965 and we didn't know anything, I still have it. I found a copy of it. We had it on acetate. And a few years ago, one surface. We only had a dozen of them made up. But I started recording in earnest. The band I was in 1971, we did 2 albums for RCA. In fact, we toured Texas. That's the first time I've been to Texas. And then beyond that, we hooked up with a regional guy and recorded there. Then I've been, since the last 20 years, doing most of them. You know, I have a label with my longtime songwriting partner. So yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of stuff.
Oh, I love, yeah, you do. Do you have, like, for, you know, obviously it spans decades, and I'm not saying you have to pick one, but for me, you know, I forget the name. Is it World of Change, your 96 album? Because I listen to all your albums, and that one to me is like quintessential 90s. It's got solid riffs. It's got a healthy implementation of saxophone, and it's just, you know, it's very easy listening. I like it a lot. Do you have a decade of like, this is when the best music was made, or my favorite music was made?
Thank you. That for a long time, that was the favorite one I did, because it covered different bases. You know, it had, like we were talking earlier, the personal stuff. It had some, you know, some swing kind of stuff and some country kind of stuff. My tastes are kind of eclectic. You know, I like a lot of different stuff. If someone said you can only sing one style of music for the rest of your life, it would probably be ballads. I love to sing ballads, but, you know, people expect something from me, and I give them what they expect.
Oh, I was just saying, it is eclectic, because you have good. You have a Ray Charles cover that I loved. You have blues on there. I mean, like, yeah, you've recorded a bunch. Now, this is kind of a reach. I'm not going to say, has beer ever affected your songwriting? Because I don't want you to sound like, yeah, when I was drunk in 78, I wrote this hit. But like, you know how, like, I go through phases, or I've been in phases. Like, some might say this is a long-term Kolsch phase. But do you go through phases of what you want to write and record, like some people go through phases of what they want to brew and drink?
You know, no, because if I'm not a prolific writer that writes all the time, if there is, in fact, over the pandemic, my songwriting partner, Mark Doyle, and I said, look, we're going to be laid up here for a few months. Let's do a project, whatever. So we did the most recent thing that we did was called Joe Whiting and Mark Doyle Down in the Dirt. And, you know, let's face it, you can't sell this stuff anymore. I mean, nobody buys this stuff. But that's beside the point. You know, you brew beer, you're not going to sell it. Nobody buys it. You do it because it's creative. It's fun.
Dude, you're living the dream, man. Oh, you're living.
Yeah, I'm very, very fortunate. I mean, fortunate. My wife has had her own career. So, you know, everything did not fall upon, I got to make paid everything by playing in a band. But yeah, I've been very, very fortunate. I mean, I've toured. My most recent tour was from 2009 and into 2012. I was in Savoy Brown, so I got to tour the world, actually, and talk about having some good beer in the Czech Republic and Germany. Good Lord, Germany! I said, well, you know, you've been there. Every beer you never heard of in a can or whatever, they're fantastic
every time.
You know? And Czech Republic, drinking that out of the tap. Oh my Lord, I could have stayed there all night.
Did you happen to be in Prague when you went to Czech, or were you
Prague?
Prague is my favorite city in the world. And granted, I've only been to like half of a percentage of all the cities in the world, but I'm making the claim just because of it's one of the few European cities that wasn't maliciously, or I say maliciously, it wasn't bombed heavily. And I think actually we were the only ones who bombed it. I don't think they were.
Yeah, right.
But it was, for the most part, the old town, the ancient part of it is still intact. How it's been.
It looked like a old. Yeah, I agree.
It's beautiful. The city's beautiful. The food is incredible. The people are beautiful. The beer is out of this world, and it's so affordable. And like, we stay in Western style hotels, like in Hilton, and it's about the same as any city Hilton would be in any city in the United States. But we went out one night and we went to this hole in the wall around the corner by one of the castles, or by the castle. And we shared like an appetizer. There was 4 of us, and we all had 3 beers each, and we all had a shot of this Czech liqueur, and the Czech comes out. And
I know that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so the Czech comes out, and Joshua's feeling a little happy. So I was like, guys, I'm going to get it. And so the guy comes back and he's like, okay, my friend, that was going to be 326 kroner or whatever. And I was thinking, oh, geez. Oh, my God. It's triple digit. And so I give him my credit card and I'm on my phone doing the calculation real quick. And by calculation, I mean there's an app to do it for you. And it ended up being like $24, $24 for all that stuff. And so, tipping's not traditional there. And the guy, they run your credit card in front of you. They don't take your card and run off. They do it in front of you. And I said, can I tip? And he looked at me like, absolutely. I put another 10 US dollars on there as if I'm like the king of the world. And he was like, thank you, sir. Oh my gosh. I was like, yeah, these people think when I'm right. I'm the cheapest person who's walked into this hole in the wall, but I could not believe how, I love Czech. And like you said, the beer, I'm sure there are places that are brewing bad beer in Germany or Czech. I just haven't found them, and I don't want to find them, but because everything was just incredible.
Yeah, and in Czech Republic, there's a aura of new freedom there. They've been dominated and occupied for decades, and so I really enjoyed it. The audiences there. When we were there, we happened to be there in that main city square on the day that they celebrate. What do they call it? Like, it's when they broke the veil of the Iron Curtain, right? Like, it's when they got, and I forget what they call that day, but their Freedom Day. And there was like 100,000 people that start flooding into the square. And James and I aren't the most welcoming of crowds, and so James, who's 19 feet tall, was like a giraffe, like, what are all these people doing here? And I'm down here at the bottom, like, tell me, what do you see, boss? What do you see? And it was bizarre, but they, like you said, that sense of new freedom, they appreciate what they have now. Hundreds of thousands of people just flooded into the square to remind everyone, we hate communism. We hate communism. I was like, this is fantastic. Like, I'm going to run away now because I hate this crowd. I hate crowds in general. But we tucked away into some bar and got sloshed on Czech lagers, Czech dark lagers. Ooh, so that's
good.
another thing I've to try. I'm going to do another one. Is a dark lager.
Get James's recipe.
Really, in terms of the lagering, I really haven't. The ale yeasts are so clean now. You don't really, and that's unlike in the original brewing that I was into. And that might be one of the reasons why I kind of got out of it. It was really an ale. It was which nothing wrong with that, but. Now the yeast, you can get closer to a lager, even though it's an ale, where it's got that crispness that a lager has, and an ale doesn't usually have, or didn't usually have.
Absolutely. Oh, dude, we gotta either you need to brew James's recipes on any given of his pilsners or his Czech dark lager, or we'll just ship you some bottles because James's beer, his lagers will make you, and Todd too. Actually, Todd's been nailing every recipe, but their pilsners that they've been brewing will make you want to be a pilsner.
I'll look them up because I look at James as the wizard. He's just got the answers,
Me too. And I only suck up to him when he's not on the show. When he's on the show, I don't want to inflate his head. Like, yeah, James, you're okay. When he's not here, I talk the truth. Like, he's him. And I am fortunate to be surrounded by two guys who have dialed in brewing to a T. So when I have beer to contribute to the beer share, I'm just praying, like, please be acceptable to them because I want their beer. I want their beer. So real quick to wrap it up. First off, I do want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's a hoot for me, Josh.
I'm so happy to hear that because I said,
to me, spending an hour with people that like to brew, and you normally have some questions that you always learn something. I like the small talk. It feels like you're visiting with friends. You know what I mean? So I know there's haters out there. Get to the point.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. I've been a child of the internet since I was like 7, so I'm used to the online trolling stuff. I get it, and a lot of the times it does crack me up. Like last week's feedback from Emily replied to my emails. Man, I've been trying to get a hold of you to give you your $25 gift card for telling us that we suck. But some of the times it is funny to me. But Joe, when I get emails, I've gotten emails that are long-winded, drawn out, telling me how you think you're funny and you're not funny, and let me tell you this and this and this, and I have to tell the person, like, I don't know you, and so it doesn't affect me in a negative way. And why do you waste so much time having that kind of emotion towards a total stranger? Like, live your life. Don't you have something else to do? Or maybe they don't. I don't know. They think
that's that rabbit hole. I mean, it's the same with Facebook. I mean, you just can't go in there because people are like, really, this is what you're going to spend your time on, is to be the haters?
I know. Well, that's why I read everything with like a Mickey Mouse voice. I give them the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, Josh, you suck. Oh. And I'm like, oh, that's how they meant it. They're just kidding with me.
They were kidding, right?
Yeah. No, I hear way worse things from my boss and my wife any given day. You can't hurt me, internet stranger. But so wrapping it up, they can find more about what. So I wish, Joe, that you did an Instagram for anything, but especially for your brewing, because I would love to see short clip videos of what 40 plus years of brewing wisdom that you can impart. But you don't do it now. It's okay, whatever. I'm not going to peer pressure you, but they can find more info at joewhitingmusic.com, correct?
Yes, they can. And I'm on Facebook at Joe Whiting and Joe Whiting Band. And be sure that you send me the link to this. I'll get it on my both my Facebook things. I've got a goodly amount of followers that I'll try to say, be interested and hit the like button, for crying out loud.
Absolutely. I know. I need to say that at the beginning of the show too. Hey, welcome to the Homebrew Happy Hour. Smash that like button and hit subscribe, or is it smash subscribe and hit like? Do those things. I gotta do better at that because I'm not soliciting. Again,
I'm not a good salesman either. Don't worry.
I'm not a good salesman. I'm fortunate to have a job. I don't think Todd watches episodes when he's not on them, so I can say I've been conning Todd for a long time. No, here's what I want to do, Joe. I want to get you down to Texas at some point, and let's do a jam. Would you?
I would love to. I always liked Texas. Like I said, my experience has been there. I played the Millennium there. I played a club there. I was there, not there with Savoy Brown, but I was there a couple other times. I always liked Texas. I mean, I never had a problem there.
We got to get you.
I'd love to get down.
We'll get you flown into DFW. I'll come pick you up because the ranch is like 2 hours from the airport, but that's the closest airport. Or you can fly into Austin and I'll pick you up on the way up to the ranch, which is just like it's 3.5 hours from Bergstrom. But we got to get you to Texas. Mainly, I mean, we'll brew with you on the Herms and blah blah blah. Oh, but I want to jam, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Be sure to tell James and Todd that I appreciate what they do. And like I said, Todd got a batch right now in one of Todd's kegs. And I'm going to send James a picture when I get my stuff all installed in that new kegger. I'll send a picture to you guys.
Please do. And Joe, thank you so much for your time, man. We will keep in touch. I'll talk to you soon.
Good.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you would like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or remember, you can call or text them in by using 325-305-6107. Thank you to our show sponsor, Imperial Yeast. You'll get a free pack of Imperial Yeast with your monthly recipe kits when you join our Trub Club at patreon.com/Homebrew Happy Hour. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thank you for listening.